Deji is still with us. Deji, let's look at the possibility of Nigeria qualifying out of that group. Like, if you are just joining us, Deji is the country manager of Making of Champions, a body, a brand organization that does catching youth, especially in athletics. So Deji, how optimistic looking at the group where we are in Group B of the World Cup? The World Cup is the next starting some few weeks time. So tell us the possibility of Nigeria coming out from that group.
Once again, good evening. Thank you for having me. For the World Cup starting on the 20th of July, our chances are pretty slim. And being as objective as I can, I want the Super Falcons to go past the quarterfinal stage, their best position they've ever gotten to in the history of the World Cup. But in terms of preparation, in terms of the past performances at the last outcome, as well as recent friendly games, there is nothing to write home about. Probably the only shining lights would be the fitness of Asisat Oshoala. We know she missed out at the African Women Cup of Nations, which Nigeria finished fourth, our second worst performance in the history of the championship itself. There's also the omission of Ngozi Okobi in the team, around the world drum having a terrible record when it comes to friendly matches and as well as competitive matches. So it's really sad, to be honest. In terms of preparation, the team should have camped in Abuja since June 20th before they jet off to Melbourne to begin their final phase of preparation. But they had to cancel the camping in Abuja too. So it's not just looking good for the Super Falcons, really. And I'll be really surprised if they go past the group.
Yeah. So what do you think we should hold on to as we get to the World Cup? We know that the training perhaps will open in Abuja as soon as. But tell us, what's that thing that is optimistic about them that we can rely on, apart from the fact that people just focus on Azizat Oshoala for what she has done in a club level. Apart from that, is there anything we need to talk about? Because when you also look at the coach, a lot of people are talking about World Drum that is not the best we can get. That there's nothing new about these girls. What are you holding on to as we share our teams in the World Cup?
There are a bit of shining light in the team. That's no doubt. Rashid Ajibade is looking to get off the shadows of Rasad Oshola. There is Gift Monday. There is Ashley Promptier, the young lad that plays for Leicester. There are a bit of individual brilliance around them. I would have loved to see Ngozi Okobi, no doubt. And as expected, there was a bit of uproar when she got omitted from the full list itself. And that's because in the middle of the pack, she comes with so much flair, guile, and intuition, something off the book that technique can't teach. And Nigerians will be worried. So if anything good can come out of this team, it would boil down to the individual brilliance of these girls and how much they can steer the team forward. So for someone like Asista Oshola, no doubt she's still our best player. She scored at 2015 World Cup. She scored at 2019 World Cup. And she's looking to make it 3 in a row. She's not a captain, but she's undoubtedly a leader of the team. And she'll be pushing them to ensure that we do something great. But like we've reiterated, similar with the Women's World Cup too, we are far behind when it comes to the technicality of the games of women's football. And that's why a country like Canada, countries like Sweden, a country like Norway that we're more populated than, probably got more talented players than, they always do better than us. And that's because they've got the structure, they've got a plan, and they put this into fusion. They teach them the basics right from a very young age. And technically wise, they are very good. So just put it on bare. Look at some of the top leagues in Europe, the Spanish league, the English league, now that's the women's league itself, the American Soccer League. How many Nigerians are playing for top teams there? Only Asisa Oshoala, you can mention. Even Ashley Propter plays for Leicester City, the struggle relegation last season in WSL. So you can't really point your fingers to any top player aside Asisat and maybe Ashta Ajibade that's doing well for themselves. And these are just few droplets in the ocean. Now, compared to the technically gifted top teams like Sweden, the United States, the Germans, the Norwegians, you could name them, even the Australians, who are getting into their groove now. They are co-hosting. They beat the European champions, England, in a friendly game recently. But Nigeria's record is just terrible. Wardrum in the recent tournaments in the United States and in Mexico, they lost to teams, and it just shows very doom gloom reading for the Super Falcons. So I'm trying to be as optimistic as much as I can, but there are very few positives to look at from the Super Falcons, and I'll be really surprised if they go past the group stage.
Now, why? And this also for African teams. But case study the Super Falcons because they've done so well in Africa. What do you think is missing that we cannot translate the success we've done in the African continent? Why can't we translate? Why is it a bigger ordeal to translate that success into something foreign, international events and all that? We've gone to Channel Friendly where France has given us 8-0. That was the first game of the former coach. You can see from what we are seeing right now, we know that we lost that game to France. So what was missing? Why can't we translate the success in the African continent to the rest of the world?
It's simple. For the major reason that we are a developing country or we're a developing continent, or as you like to call it, a third world continent. So it's difficult to put structures in place. And because of how football is evolving yearly, it's become scientific. A whole lot of things are put on the technicalities of the game and how you can refine footballers at a very early age. So you ask yourself, how many properly well-run female academy or women's academies do we have in Nigeria? They are less than half-baked. And right from the ages of 8 to 10, 10 to 13, we don't have structures that teach them the basics of football. And this is literally the early stage of learning. A large chunk of African footballers and Nigerian footballers, to be specific, rely majorly on instinct and primarily on power and pace. And you cannot win matches or you cannot build a team based on that alone. The technicality of the game is important. Look at our coach, Reddy Waldrum, for example. He's still a part-time coach. He's still someone that was struggling with Houston Dash, Coastal Trinidad and Tobago. And we're bringing him to coach the Super Falcons, the most successful African country in the history of the African Women's Cup of Nations and the World Cup itself. South Africa maybe have got a grand plan. In terms of talent-wise, they might not be up to the Super Falcons of Nigeria, but you could see why they've now gone to the top of African football, because they have a plan, they're putting it in place, developing some of the best players, teaching them at a very young age. They might not catch up to what is obtainable at the world stage, but watch them do wonders at the World Cup. And that's because they've got a plan that is working for them. All through the years that we're dominating African football, teams are not caught up to us, because eventually you cannot rely solely on talent, power, and pace. You need to build up a structure. See what the Senegalese and Moroccans are doing in men's football. But we're just lying fallow and hoping that our yesteryear's abilities will take us through. It would not happen. It is not bad to start from the scratch. It is understandable that we've messed up. After the World Cup, because, I don't see them doing anything meaningful at the World Cup, go back to the basics. Give a 4 to 8 year plan for the next 2 World Cup. This is what we want to do. This is where we want to go. Empower academies. Ensure you teach them the basics. A large chunk of the ones that are playing at the World Cup come from most of the club sites around Nigeria. Robo Queens, Rivers Angels, Bielsa Queens. They are talented players, but they are half-baked in terms of technique, and they don't teach them the basics. And we just see them do well at under 17, under 20 World Cup. We solely think they are the best of talents. Ask yourself, why have we not found another Shola since 2014 or an Ajibade since 2016? They will be there, a couple of them, but we still need to refine them. And we've saw this refining to the European club sides. But how many can they do for us? So eventually, we'll begin to ensure that we take care of these loopholes, would be where we are and probably even be on the downward spiral.
Okay, now it's obvious that if you ask Nigerians, there's nothing so much to be optimistic about this going out. But there's one question that people ask that there's some old, let me use that word, players has been there for a very long time on Omoebi. Some have even included Aziza Toshoala because she has been there for a very long time. Some also have included Okpa and Jose. With the list of players going to represent us, do you think they deserve to be there? Some said they should have just take these old lads away and bring in new players. all players are hungry for success. If you're the coach or if you're in a position of advisory to advise the technical committee, will you go along with that thoughts?
Absolutely not. Mata is going for a 6th World Cup for Brazil. There is some care that plays for Chelsea. She's captaining the Australian team. This is going to be her 3rd World Cup. Same as Oshola's 3rd World Cup. She's 29 years old. Oshola is 28. There is Christian Sinclair playing for Canada. We've got a couple of, I wouldn't use the word old players, but experience matter a lot when it comes to women's football. And it's important that you infuse them with the precocious ones or the fledglings that are coming up. And that's what the Germans have done. Alexandra Popp played the same on the 20 World Cup as likes of them under Mr. Sunday as at 2010. She's about 31, 32, and she's still the old war she is with the German national team, even though she's struggling with injury, both with Wolfsburg and the German national team. But they count on her experience. But a large chunk of the German national team have players that are going for their 2nd World Cup, and they're still in their mid-20s, and that's because they infused them very early. But that doesn't necessarily matter. It's just a mixture of experience as well as youth coming to the fore, and it depends on your approach itself. The English too have got a couple of players in their late 20s as well as early 30s, and they've got a couple of younglings too. They were the European champions from last year. You check the Swedish national team, you check their roster, they've got experienced lads there. When it comes to the World Cup, the premium competition, you need as much experience as you can. And if they are still at their full level, fitness level, they should go. I just mentioned Mata. Everybody knows Mata, the amount of Ballon d'Or she was. She was still leading Brazilian charge to the World Cup. She might not necessarily play all the matches, but that leadership role is important. And that's why I didn't necessarily follow the inclusion of the likes of Onome AB, Asad Oshola. Maybe Rita Chikwele, because she never got invited. Her legs already look spent. She's already into her late 30s. But primarily, I think it's important to infuse experience with youth at a top competition like the Women's World Cup.
So now, lastly, before we let our viewers have a glimpse of the final of 2019, let's look at this. Nigeria seems to be the brightest hope. Based on experience for the World Cup. Though we have South Africa and some other 2 countries there, but do you think Nigeria still carries the flag of other African countries at this World Cup? Amongst the teams going to the World Cup from Africa, which one do you think will probably do us proud as a continent?
Number 1, South Africa. Number 2, Morocco. Number 3, Zambia. And number 4, Nigeria. And there's a reason they finished in that same order at the African Women's Cup of Nations.
I'm sure you're trying to, based on the last
not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Probably Nigeria ahead of Zambia, maybe. But I don't see Zambia getting out of the group. I don't see Nigeria getting out of this group. So South Africans and probably South Africans have got the better chance of leaving their group. No doubt about that. And the South Africans, as obviously because they've won the last 2 major trophies in Africa, came to our home turf and beat us black and blue, taught us a lesson. They won the last African Women's Cup of Nations convincingly, without even their best player in Themba Kgatlana. You could see the young stars in the team, how Desiree Ellis has built a competent side, a side based on so much values, flair, grit, tenacity in the middle of the pack and up front. So it's not necessarily based on talent alone. So you see that they've got a structure similar to the Europeans, just that they've not got enough years under their belt to be able to match them. But I think they'll put up a decent showing. The Moroccans is a reflection of what the structure they built themselves with their male national team. It might come too early for them to go past the group stage, but I think they will still put up a decent show. For Nigeria, already highlighted the problem itself. Zambia were at the Olympics in 2021. So they've got that bit of exposure and experience there. I don't think they've got the talent to match all round in the pitch, but I think they'll also put a decent effort there. They'll obviously or most likely not get out of the group, but I think in terms of that ranking, the South Africans and maybe the Moroccans are the African side that should give us a decent showing in Australia and New Zealand.
Okay, well said. Thank you, Deji.